Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to another fantastic edition of Sit Back with Shaq and Anu. It's, of course, the World Cup season, and everything that we do for the World Cup or during the show, it's going to be associated with the World Cup. We've got our guest host on the show with us, who is pretty much here almost every single day, the day before Sri Lanka plays. That we're talking about the legend Chaminda Vaas. On the other non-playing days, we're going to be speaking to entities, individuals who are very closely connected to Sri Lanka cricket. And today we have the privilege of having the CEO of Moose Clothing in the studio with us. It's Hasib, Omar, and of course Moose is the official sponsor of the Sri Lankan cricket team for the T20 World Cup. Welcome to the show, Hasib.
Thank you for having me, Shaq.
It's going to be a lot of fun.
I'm looking forward to it.
You sound a bit nervous.
Yeah, so give me a few minutes to get comfortable, warm up.
Would you like a drink?
Small one.
We offer that too.
But fortunately, you'll be wearing Moose, so
exactly. I have to support my brand.
You'll be quite comfortable, I feel. And also, I must apologize. I wasn't here yesterday.
Oh, thanks.
I was dragged away. I had to call Shaq, a little late in the evening and say, guess what? So, yeah, these things happen. But we have to also address the fact, about today's match. We'll get into it.
Yeah.
It was a good match.
No, it was a good match. I thought it was a great match, considering, this is Australia. We are playing in Perth, the fastest wicket, of course, in Australia. And
did you see the Australian bowling? Oh, God.
Oh, man. No, but I was, this is the time that we really miss like the superstars like, Dushmantha Chamira, Pramod Madhushankar, and all these guys. Imagine them bowling with the pace that Lahir Kumara had today. Absolutely. Amazing. So lots to talk about on the show. Thank you very much to our sponsors, Softlogic Live, for being a part of the show right throughout till the World Cup season ends. We've got Edge Vantage Workflows also on the show with us, and a big thank you to our friends at Daraz for being a part of Sit Back and, of course, Payback right here on our platform on PodHub.
But before we move on and pay tribute to our sponsors, got to say a big congratulations to Rishi Sunak, who just became a new Prime Minister in England.
Yep.
Kathavedi, you know why? Just imagine every Indian family now. Beta, look at what Rishi used to play marbles with on the corners of there. What has he done? What are you going to do?
What are you going to do?
I'm going to meet him. He's Prime Minister.
I saw a really nice picture that was actually going viral today. Number 10 Downing Street with about 15 pairs of slippers outside.
Well done.
It's amazing. Anyway, time for us to get into details from Down Under right about now. Rightio, looking at some of the stuff that's obviously in social media or about the Cricket World Cup. What do we have right now? Today's performance, Sri Lanka unfortunately going down to Australia by 7 wickets. At one point we thought that we sort of had a sniff, but here comes Marcus Stoinis, and that's about it. And that's it. And everybody lives happily ever after, sort of thing.
Absolutely. But I think even when Chaminda Vaas was talking about this was strategy, I feel.
Yeah, I mean,
make a dim.
Yeah. Yeah, no, actually, you know what? Vaas was actually talking about the fact that out of these 5 matches, we need to target 3.
That's right.
One, of course, is Ireland.
Yeah.
Second one is New Zealand. Yeah. And the third one is Afghanistan. Yeah. Anything else on top of that is an absolute bonus for us.
Doable, I feel. And, like I said, like you mentioned, it is the fastest wicket there.
Oh my God,
and
yes.
the Australian pace attack was absolutely on fire.
Yeah.
I mean, you need full armor, knights in shining armor, and a bat.
But great performance by Charit Asalanka today. It was wonderful to see him actually bat.
Yeah.
So it's great to see him back in the runs. Kusal Mendes is in the runs. Patum Nisanko, of course, is in the runs. Nice to see the top order slowly coming back. Yesterday, Vasi did say that Sri Lanka is peaking at the right time. No qualms about losing this match.
Absolutely.
And honestly, no qualms about Wanindu Hasaranga getting hammered for 50 runs for the very first time in his T20 career this early in the match, in the tournament. So obviously it brings him back down to earth, starts from scratch, move on to the next one. He's a match winner for Sri Lanka. He's always been a match winner. So hopefully he will come out for the next one. A couple of tweets that we saw on the show. Oh, tomorrow's matches. Ireland take on England. Brother and brother taking on each other tomorrow. Right?
I don't think they consider each other brothers.
Yeah. Brother from another mother.
There's just too much history there.
And New Zealand and Afghanistan also tomorrow. Both the matches are played at the MCG. So two good matches, of course, happening tomorrow. That's Wednesday, the 26th of October. Some of the other stuff that we actually picked up. Sri Lanka have a history of rolling over lower ranked sides in the T20 World Cup, which is true. Kenya, Bangladesh, Zimbabwe, Netherlands, Namibia, Netherlands, UAE. And someone was also basically pointing out the fact that Sri Lanka have got the most number of wins in T20 World Cups.
Right, yes.
When you do play qualifiers, it helps.
Yeah, also. Yeah.
Right, come on.
The stats just improve no end.
Exactly. So that's something else that we forgot to mention the other day. This, of course, Pat Cummins, he's finding it very difficult as far as his death bowling is concerned. Yeah. Pat Cummins is also tipped to be the next Australian T20 captain, which is not too much of a good news, especially if you take a look at his bowling figures right now. That is the story there. Australia have failed to score a boundary in the power play for the first ever time in T20 history. That was today.
Yeah, that's great.
Great bowling by Sri Lanka at that point. It was the first time to actually keep the defending champions from scoring a boundary in the power play. Adam Zampa, of course, we found out, but it's funny that the ICC does still allow them to actually do play, even if you have COVID.
Yeah, but he doesn't have symptoms. That's what they're saying.
Yeah, so
it's strange, but I think I like this kind of adaptation.
Yeah,
and this is like social evolution to kind of take things in stride.
Yeah.
So ultimately, everyone in the team.
Probably a good thing, right? We've come a long way from COVID.
Oh yeah. God.
So look forward, at least we've been treating it like a common flu.
That's true. It's about time. Just leave it alone. So those are the stories that are obviously running on viral on social media. We're going to take a quick break. When we come back, we're going to have dived straight into the conversation with Hasib Omar, CEO of Moose Clothing, in the studio with us tonight on Sit Back, right after this.
Welcome to the universe of the Raz, where you explore and discover whatever you want, whatever you need. All you can imagine is on your feet. When miles are abridged, happiness is unlocked. Discover your Raz.
අභියෝගය මොකක් වුණත් මේ රට දිනනවාමයි. Come on Sri Lanka. අපිට පුළුවන්.
Softlogic Live. ලංකාවේ හොඳම සෞඛ්‍ය රක්ෂණයෙන් සුබ පැතුම්.
Clients bowling bounces at you. With Edgevantage, you can ensure there are no more nasty surprises. Get all your client interactions managed in a structured process, so you know what's coming at you next. Edgevantage from SP Solutions.
ඕවර් එකයි ලකුණු 8යි විකට් එකයි ඇඟිලි වල නියපොතු ඉවරයි නායක දසුන් ශානකට ලොකු අභියෝගයක් වේගෙන් යවන චමීරද දඟ කවන හසරංගද දඟ කරන්න චාමික නේද දඟ කරන නෙමෙයි දඟ කවන මව්බිමේ බලාපොරොත්තු සුරතට රැගෙන අවසන් ඕවරේ එවීමට ශානක ගොට් හිට් ශ්‍රී ලංකා වී අභියෝගය මොකක් වුණත් මේ රට දිනනවාමයි come on ශ්‍රී ලංකා අපිට පුළුවන්
Softlogic Live. ලංකාවේ හොඳම සෞඛ්‍ය රක්ෂණයෙන් සුබ පැතුම්.
Thank you very much, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome back to the show. Tuesday evening, coming to you live on our platforms on YouTube and Facebook. This is Sit Back with Shaq and Anu with Hasib, Omar, CEO of Moose Clothing, in the studio with us. Of course, it's the World Cup season. Moose are the official sponsors of the Sri Lankan cricket team for the ICC T20 World Cup. Hasib, let's start off with how did Moose come about, really?
Okay, interesting story.
Right.
I've been in the apparel industry, been born into it pretty much.
Yeah, you had no choice.
I have no choice, exactly.
Yes.
So since I graduated 2008, came back to Sri Lanka after working a couple of years overseas and joined the family business. And I've always wanted to sort of have a clothing brand, do something different from how a normal business runs.
Right.
So the idea is, what I think about is sort of, if I look at it, we see how much we get paid for our clothes,
right,
what we make sort of, and then we see what it is sort of retailed at as well.
Yeah.
There is massive markups, but then a lot of the brands are also public quoted companies,
right,
and we can see their numbers. Their profitability numbers are also not too great. Nobody makes tremendous margins.
right.
So clearly somewhere down the line it's all getting lost.
Right.
So that's where I've always thought, say, if we can use our expertise on how we make clothes, we're sort of glorified tailors. If we can use our expertise to create a clothing brand from Sri Lanka and to take it to the world. So that's been the idea. So I think 2018 it was when I sort of decided enough with experimenting and really get into this full time. And ever since, it has been a fun journey. It has come a long way. A lot of with COVID and economic crisis and all that, Easter and all that, it was tough times, but it has been a very interesting journey.
Very resilient, I must say.
And sort of we've probably been fairly lucky as well.
Right. Yeah.
Yeah. So that's what interesting.
Right. So 2018, and now we're in 2022, and it's been a fantastic rise because you are pretty much right smack in one of the biggest cricket events in the world, right? So that must actually taken you a couple of steps to get there.
Yeah.
Yes.
How did that happen? No, because,
with COVID and say sort of the import restrictions and all that. It has sort of it has allowed us to, it has made selling our product a little bit easier because of less competition from overseas brands and all that. So in this time we thought this is the time we sort of really need to invest into branding, and say while the product is being sold, we really need to make a name out of it. So it's sort of so that's been the decision that we really hope it sort of pays out. That's the idea. So
I think it's certainly got noticed.
It's got noticed.
Eyeballs on this tournament.
Yes. So it was. The other thing was, it was interesting time when the bid for this came up.
Right.
Because it was Sri Lanka cricket was, we hadn't won the Asia Cup.
Okay.
So, and we were in the midst of an economic crisis, and the dollar was depreciating no end.
Yes.
So
it's like an old story.
So
have I heard this before?
So that's exactly. So at that time, to make the decision, that they say not everyone was really keen, but then our team is really a small young team, which less than 50 people from the distribution center to the board.
Oh wow!
So less than 50 people, and so a very youthful and a young team. Sort of, let's take the plunge and see how it goes. So
that's been certainly great, though.
Exactly.
So sorry, you were saying?
No. So now we hope for Christmas, say the season to be as good as expected.
Yeah, and the thing, of course, is the fact that, credit to Moose and credit to your team behind. If you really want to put your brand out there, you need to make that bold decision and stamp your authority, which I think you've really done very well.
Bold and expensive decision.
Exactly. Now you're looking for, clearly you're not expecting it to show you returns automatically.
No.
Right?
Of course not.
It's obviously a long, drawn-out process, but you have that top of mind now.
Exactly. So that's the idea. And so, say, like I was saying earlier, it has been a little bit easier to sell products. So, say, we hope that people will notice what they're using.
Yeah.
And then when the international brands are in play, it's sort of, we've established ourselves. And of course, the idea is going global. So, we're still figuring out our strategy. Digitally, we are available globally. And few stores in the Middle East and all that. So, but we're still figuring out our global strategy.
That's
I think
great.
when it comes to the Sri Lankan market, I think that the whole idea is you have made mousse very affordable, and compared to lots of local brands and of certainly international brands, I think mousse is at a price point that is more accessible to not just the SEC A and B, but pretty much down the line.
Exactly. So that's been the idea. So like when I was telling you earlier, when between retail price and what we sort of get paid, it was all getting lost. So that was that's the problem sort of we've been trying to solve and see. So one of the decisions was that we won't have our own store sort of thing.
Okay.
And so we say there are so many retailers out there. We said they have the space and how we can sort of use that and
I think that works.
so it's sort of a different strategy to what a lot of people would have, but yeah.
Yeah, I mean, and the other thing, of course, is the fact that it's really come out strong as a brand that really is with the people. It's not necessarily, it doesn't look like a brand that's very aloof because of the fact that you're tied up with rugby, maybe about a year and a half ago also that you were basically with SLRFU, and now getting into Sri Lanka's most loved sport, cricket. You are with the people and you're taking the brand out there.
Exactly. So let me just tell you a story, a couple of minutes long.
That's fine.
About our...
We have an hour.
So
take all the hour if you want.
Awesome. So this, in our head, is probably our perfect customer. His name is Pradeep.
Right.
He's from Giritale.
Right.
Grade 5, he got a scholarship to go to Malyadeba in Kurunagala.
Right.
His father is a farmer, mother is a housewife. His sister is a teacher who's married to a soldier. He then goes to Peradhan University. He becomes engineer. And he wants, he goes for an internship at John Keel's.
Right.
And say his idea is he wants to be a CEO or a general manager by the time he's of a certain age.
Right.
So that's our perfect customer. And so that's who we sort of pitch to. I mean, of course, everyone in between as well, but
of course,
that's who we are sort of driving to. And so Pradeep looks for value. Right. And say he looks for quality value, not too much fluff. So that's what we sort of try and provide.
And hard beginnings.
Hard beginnings.
Yeah, I mean, hard beginnings, obviously, purely because the fact that you're also keeping the price value at an affordable, purely because of hard beginnings,
And you've kept mousse very, very comfortable. And like we were talking just before the show started, the ethos is the perfect fit.
Yes.
So, that really works. No, because I think a lot of my friends, and myself included, have found that lots of brands available in the local market, both local and internationally produced, doesn't really fit you all that well.
So, yes, you're right. So this of course comes from our learning from the parent company and all that. So what we've sort of done is when we were at the factories, we did ridiculous amounts of fit-ons. So say before we got the fit perfect, I think over 500 people would have tried our pant on.
Okay.
Wow.
So say at different size sets. So say body types.
Yeah.
And then we sort of catered a fit for the Sri Lankan market.
Right.
So the pant and the t-shirt is sort of specifically catered for our body type. So it might not fit some of the, if it's exported or certain but for Sri Lankans, it's specifically catered.
So basically, when it comes to the men, no ass, thin calves. And the thighs.
You're not part of it.
Sorry. I may have...
Make a water name. But when you did start off with it, did you basically have the picture of it being a more male dominant brand? Are you pushing that male dominance, even though there is a female line there, but it's not as dominant as the male brand out there. Is there a strategy that you're going with?
No, that's not a strategy. We need to figure out our strategy to cater to the females as well.
Right.
Because what has been difficult, what we found is...
Women are hard to please.
No.
Yes, come on.
Exactly.
Say it.
Absolutely. Women are hard to
Jack,
please.
we have to go home and be welcome at home. Let me just,
So
It doesn't matter what we say, we still won't be welcome.
we'll do that one.
Hopefully the missus is off to bed.
Yeah.
So say what happens is a pair of jeans or pair of chinos will vary for multiple occasions.
Right.
But the ladies want different fits, say fluffy, tight, this thing. So we're still trying to figure out how we can really get that correct, because so the idea on keeping costs low and all that is we want to be able to have quantities.
Right.
That's the idea.
Right.
So we're still trying to figure out from the ladies' perspective.
Is actually the male popularity of mousse, popularity of mousse among men, hurting the brand perspective, the brand kind of perception amongst the women? Because I'll give you an example. Like for instance, when scooters came into the market. Now in India, it's a female-dominated product.
Right.
But in Sri Lanka, they kind of tried to market it that way, and then they realized that more men than women were buying it. Immediately changed everything. Nothing running on India can run in Sri Lanka, for instance, about any of these scooters, because it's mostly men that ride scooters. So, it can...
So, say, generally what we've seen from online and say the people engaging with the brand, it has there is it's almost a 60-40.
Right. Okay.
So we've been extremely surprised, 60% male, 40% females.
Yeah.
So the females are engaging with us. So say the product, it's basic product, but we cater to them. Not as many styles, but it suits sort of the purpose. But say now for us to really take us to the next level, we'll have to figure out do we create another brand by say especially if we want to get into lingerie and things like that. Mousse doesn't sound too feminine for lingerie. So.
That's what I was about to ask you. I mean, not forget lingerie, but I'm saying the whole thing about mousse, the title, the name itself, it's so like macho.
Yeah.
It's would it make sense if there was a sub brand of mousse for the female line? Would that help?
That's what exactly we are also trying to figure out.
Right.
I don't have the answer to that at the moment.
Right.
Maybe we could say do some sort of online poll and all that to really figure out.
Right.
Because
and also could check out some of the very urban-centric bands like Kelly Felder and G Flock, and they've got that female equation right, I feel.
Absolutely.
Yeah. So anyway, there's lots to
lots to look at.
Yeah.
I mean, considering the fact that, listen, you guys are just 4 years old and you made massive strides already in those 4 years. So congratulations for that. Because now Mousse is a brand that is top of mind out there for guys when they go out. Because it doesn't matter what retail store you go, there's always a little Mousse corner. And you've got your t-shirts, you've got your chinos, you've got whatever it is that you need to basically sort of go after. And also jumping on board with such world events like the Cricket World Cup and all that stuff, takes the brand level much higher. Moving forward, something else, in terms of, I know you're trying to figure out the female side of it so far, but there is a massive vacuum in this country for, I think, locally manufactured kids' clothes. Huge! And now, nobody can even go abroad to get it.
No, there are certain products available.
Yeah,
manufactured locally, but
you can buy a house for the price that you buy a kid's clothes these days.
So say about kids, I would say where we see the vacuum is for older kids, so between 8 and 14
possible
sort of thing.
That's right.
So say we see there is say between 6 and 14 sort of thing is where we see there is a vacuum for, and we're hoping by February we should have our kids range.
Oh wow!
So we're really looking forward to that. Team's working hard.
That's great.
I hope we're able to launch that.
Right.
So,
that really is. There's a massive vacuum considering the fact that, listen, we're all parents here, right? And we've had a most difficult time actually going out and getting kids clothes, especially locally manufactured kids clothes is very difficult to actually find.
Absolutely. At the right price point.
That's right.
Comfortable, stylish, the right fit at the right price.
Yeah.
So these are the things that you naturally look for, right? Whether you are an adult or a kid or an adult trying to buy clothes for your kids, these are obviously natural things that you look at. It has to fit your budget for one thing. It has to look good. And I think it's great, but I think the move to sponsor Sri Lanka cricket certainly built a ton of aspiration into the brand.
Yeah.
So, our kids, just like the adults, are cricket crazy. It's a fact. So I think this move particularly, although it may have been expensive.
I'd say Sri Lanka cricket winning the Asia Cup wouldn't have come at a better time.
Absolutely.
Because there's so much renewed interest in cricket and the World Cup at this time after the victory. So
it works like a charm.
Exactly.
The cosmos is on your side,
I think we got very lucky with that.
Yeah, absolutely.
No, but also kudos to you and the team at a time where the country was going through a really tough time, and also Sri Lanka cricket wasn't doing all that great, to step up and say, yes, we are coming and we're going to back you guys, is a great achievement, honestly.
So we've been working with Sri Lanka cricket previously as well, so a couple of tours. So I think even the Australia series,
That's
the Test
right.
series was called the Moose Cup. So it was the decision whether we continue or pull out,
Right.
and so we decided that no, we'll sort of continue and go ahead. And so it has worked well. Now we hope that the Sri Lanka cricket team also
Better work well.
Better do their part.
Get your act together now.
exactly.
We've done everything here. Play the game.
We've got questions coming in for you. This is from Kanti. So what's your vision for Moose? Are you interested in the business getting more involved in other sports as well?
So say the vision for Moose is to be an international clothing brand. And say the idea is, if you look at we say Paris, London, New York as fashion points. But I think the expertise on design and development is not there too much anymore. It's happening in this part of the world. So I feel if the brands can be built here, and it wouldn't be too long before the fashion capital sort of change. So that's my vision.
Right.
It's probably maybe a pipe dream, but that's
But I'm glad that you are initiating this, because maybe it doesn't happen in 10, 20 years, but certainly 50 years down the line, you lay the groundwork right, you'll get it right.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So that's what we're sort of hoping for as well.
And we've also in Sri Lanka, we've been a center point for apparel exports for the longest time.
Yeah.
We seem to know our material really well. And to design something in a place where we are exporting some of the best products around the world, right? Some of the big brand names are actually created in Sri Lanka. And we're using that expertise to create stuff for the local market is also a huge plus. But how has the apparel market changed with the current situation, with the dollar crisis? Because clearly it's up and down.
So say if you look at the apparel industry in Sri Lanka was resilient through COVID.
Yeah.
Because say the industry managed to quickly switch from manufacturing lingerie and sportswear to doing PPE.
That's right.
So say from masks to variety of PPE, the industry didn't go idle.
Okay.
Even during COVID, and the government also allowed the industry to function. So say the last couple of years were good for the industry.
Right.
It was not as doom and gloom as expected.
Right.
It did much better than expectations. But now what has happened is, looking at the next couple of quarters and all that, it seems a big challenge, because we see a lot of open capacities that's in Sri Lanka, and also overseas. What has happened is because of the recession and things going on in Ukraine. And
There's a global slowdown. Right.
So nothing. I mean, so I think the Sri Lankan apparel industry is only a little over $5 billion. If you look at Bangladesh, is closer to $40 billion.
Right.
So what we are hoping for is we can pull a share from there, and the industry can keep going here.
So
that's
what is the reason though in terms of apparel industry? Like for example, I also see most of the apparel industries opening up in parts of Africa, right? Which is lots of companies are opening up in parts of Africa. Bangladesh, huge amount of apparel industries. What is it that they have that we don't have?
Okay. So I think this is if we can look at it like this. In Sri Lanka, we have the know-how to make clothes, to design and develop, sourcing, all that the know-how is there. What is lacking here is probably the labor. Yeah. So if we can think of Colombo and Sri Lanka as a design hub, and say India, Bangladesh, all that as where production takes place.
Right.
So that's sort of, and say even Africa to a certain extent.
East Africa mostly, yes.
Yes. So that's how the Sri Lankan apparel companies are looking at it.
So you feel that we are far more creative?
We are far more creative, and what has happened is we've come a long way on sort of the product what we do, because the costs in Sri Lanka are not as cheap as Bangladesh.
Right.
And so what we've sort of gone on to do is more elevated product, probably a little bit more expensive brands from a few years ago, or even within brands, more expensive sort of products. And say, whereas Bangladesh, India, Pakistan probably do sort of slightly low end of the product.
Now, obviously, your parent company. Okay, let's just get into that one from Trevor.
Trevor asked this question. So, how nervous were you when we looked like we wouldn't make it to the Super 12? How would you have justified the investment to the board?
Ooh, what a great question! Were you walking out with a paper bag on your head?
Exactly. So so that I mean that's what we like I said, we got really lucky. That I would have never been able to justify, and we probably had to.
Where were you when we played the first game?
Watching keenly at home.
Right. So yeah, well, Trevor, there you go. That's the answer to your question. But talking about the apparel industry itself, obviously the parent company is pretty much into exports. You've taken a stand out of this. We'll get into the fact that as to how the family allowed you to do that in the first place, because of course you're looking at producing and sending it out. But here you are bringing stuff into the country because you need to import stuff, looking at the current prices and the taxes and all that stuff. How is that affecting Moose as a brand?
So I think our customers would probably also say the same. Our prices have sort of increased drastically in the last...
everybody else.
Like everybody else's.
Yeah.
So say we've had a double whammy. First, let's say the cotton prices also drastically gone up, but now they're on their way down.
Okay.
And we also had a hit on the exchange rate.
Right.
So that's the reason. And say almost 60 to 70% of raw materials are imported, so which sort of affects us on the exchange rate. So hence the price increase. But we've sort of still same fabric, same quality. We've not sort of cut down on that. And we think the playing field would probably be the same for everyone else. And if we look at it from a dollar perspective, our price hasn't changed.
Right.
For the last 3 years, probably the price has remained the same from a dollar perspective.
So how big is Moose in the international market right now? Because I know you are available online to pretty much anywhere in the world, probably. So how has it worked? I mean,
I say our international strategy was, it has been a failure. I've said so because we started off our India launch with sort of with some of the physical stores and some tie-ups, and COVID hit straight away.
Right.
So that didn't work out well at all. Yeah. So then we pulled back and we sort of got into a full-on digital strategy. So we're available on Amazon, Flipkart, and all those things in India. And that we're still trying to say, I wouldn't say it is 100% successful.
Right.
So we're figuring out our strategy, and we need to get that right.
Maybe you can, especially in this part of the world, maybe the Cricket World Cup is the perfect to kind of...
That's what we're really hoping for. So say to get this to help us build the brand internationally. Well, say if you look at it, I mean, sort of always joke around with people that Sri Lanka is really good at two things. We're world class at two things. We're world class tailors and we're world class cricketers. I don't know, maybe other industries might wouldn't agree too much, but I think those are the two things we're really world class at. We can compete with anyone else in the world. So that's what we're trying to see how we can combine and make it happen.
I think your IT department just left. I don't think you'll have one when you go back to work. Well, I work as IT people here.
Okay, something else that has really bothered me for a long time is that, we used to manufacture fabric in this country, 20, 30 years ago, and these factories were shut down. Why don't we invest more in this, making our own fabric and making it to our own specifications and at a price point that we can control rather than depend on imports?
So, few things. I think if you look at it, if you take a step back, one of the fabric industries is extremely polluting. Okay. So say because of the dyeing process and all that. Then we also don't have the raw material, right? Sort of cotton.
Yeah.
So it doesn't really make sense for us to sort of invest in large scale fabric mills. There are many fabric mills in the country catering to exports and all that, but what they mainly do is sort of knitting and dyeing process of it, and that they sort of cater to to higher end brands sort of thing. Right, and because it becomes difficult for them to compete on price, because when you don't have control of the two main raw materials, global pricing, and then the environmental laws in Sri Lanka also are fairly strict. And so that means a heavy investment into sort of water treatment facilities and all that. So the fabric mills which are here in Sri Lanka sort of cater, to brands which require speed. Okay. And so that has, I think it has worked well, and it has allowed the apparel industry to grow, because if we go back a few years, probably 90s or whatever, there was a lot of fabric manufacturing happening here. And fabric importing was sort of banned. And if that was the case, probably the apparel industry would have never grown, because you need excellent fabrics to cater to Nikes and the Victoria's Secrets and the Lululemons of the world.
Right.
And that we would have never been able to do that if fabric imports were not were not allowed.
Right.
So,
well, a friend of mine actually just dropped me a message and said that considering the fact that you're finding it difficult with getting into the female market, would you not consider actually looking at the Sri Lankan female cricket team?
We are.
Really?
Yes.
Oh, wow.
So that's why. So again,
is that a bomb that you just dropped?
Nobody knows about? So I think we are definitely looking at it. So head of marketing was just telling me today that we should.
Oh.
And so I think there will be, whenever the expression of interests are submitted, we'll hope to submit a bid for the Sri Lanka women's cricket team.
Great, because I think that is what is actually required. I mean, if you look at the Sri Lankan cricket team, we found it very difficult to actually get a hold of sponsors before 1996. It's after we actually won the World Cup that money started pouring in.
Exactly.
Interest for the game also sort of, catapulted into, mercurial levels, as a matter of fact. And but I also feel that if Sri Lanka, the Sri Lankan women's team, if they actually did cross the line in the Asia Cup, things would be completely different for them also at the same time.
Absolutely. And I think they've been sort of doing better every time.
Yes,
and there are sort of players, I think a couple of them are playing in the BPL and all that as well.
Absolutely.
So
that Chamari Adapattu certainly, fantastic.
Exactly.
Actually, we would have, if she hadn't got run out, we would have.
But the good thing was the previous series, I think she didn't do too well, and the team still.
Yeah, exactly.
So,
I mean, for the Asia Cup, she really didn't play. She was certainly not in form at all.
Yeah.
but we still managed to get to the finals,
Yeah.
which is also a good thing. That shows everybody else is actually chipping in some way or the other, and it's not necessarily resting on her. But do you also feel, Hasib, now you're obviously getting, which of course lots of people would love it. I mean, Sri Lanka is a sports crazy country, being associated with cricket. You also pushing the brand into more sporty, adventurous, associating in those lines?
Yes.
That is your strategy? That is.
So say the idea is, so how we were looking at it is, again, so we wanted to connect with something that, how, so like I was saying earlier, how the easiest way to reach the world seemed through cricket, because that's one of the few things we were world class at, and we were competing in global tournaments, World Cups and all that. So that sort of made the most amount of sense. But sadly, I have to say, other sports, Sri Lanka doesn't really compete globally.
Right.
Maybe in the Asian region or or say sort of South Asian region. So that's the reason we want to sort of back cricket and sort of go with cricket for the near future.
Let me ask you this question. Now, you obviously taken this huge leap of faith. You've jumped on board with the Sri Lanka cricket team for the T20 World Cup. What sort of reaction to your brand are you getting from abroad through this sponsorship?
So, say the reaction has been, as expected. We were hoping that it'll get us publicity and get us known,
right,
which has happened. And luckily, Sri Lanka didn't get knocked out of the first round.
Good for you.
So, yeah, exactly. And because of that, it's sort of helping us now. So we really have to evaluate once. Say look at the end of the sort of World Cup.
On the business point of view, do you have overseas clients reaching out after they see you?
Absolutely.
That's wonderful.
So say there have been lot of requests for franchise,
great,
and things like that. So, but we're still, like I said, we're trying to figure out, because I'm not the biggest fan of brick and mortar stores.
Okay.
But I think that sort of era is coming to an end.
Yeah.
And I don't want to invest in two brick and mortar stores.
Right.
So we're trying to figure out a hybrid strategy from, say, digital and how we can tap with retailers and all that.
That's wonderful. I think COVID also actually helped massively.
Elevated the digital market space to another level.
Yeah.
Because there was no choice. Then you realize that this is doable and doable cheaply. So why not, right?
That's right.
You don't have to keep massive inventory in somewhere. You can just, it's target.
That's true. That's true. And I also see that you've actually signed up a few cricketers as your brand ambassadors. See some hoardings around Colombo, which is also great. How is that helping? I mean, in terms of pushing your brand, where I think I saw one with, I think we said Dasun and Danashukuna Tilaka?
Yes.
Right. Those are the two brand ambassadors you have?
Yes.
So how is that helping your brand though?
So say again, all this sort of, we did this pre-Asia Cup,
right?
And it was done a little bit earlier, and so say it has sort of really given us the opportunity to say, because the cricketers themselves have become a lot more known and identifiable. Yeah. So that has really helped us say get out the brand message along with them. Right. So they've become icons, and it has sort of helped us to get the message.
Actually, you are absolutely right, because 6 months ago, when you said Dasun, Shanaka, Vanindu Hasaranga, it was kind of a blur.
Vanindu Hasaranga was probably
wrong example. But pretty much everyone else, I was just saying, was it like you merged into a blur?
Yeah. And now they're becoming
now they're very individual.
Absolutely.
So which is fantastic for any brand, especially if you're looking at brand ambassadors at that national iconic level, and now international iconic level. So thank heavens for that.
Exactly. So
yeah, looking at it, I mean, of course, speaking to Hasib Omar in the studio, he's the CEO of Moose Clothing, and Hasib was instrumental in powering, of course, the Sri Lankan cricket team, the sponsor of the Sri Lankan cricket team for the T20 World Cup. And we still have a couple of more games to go, keeping our fingers crossed that we will obviously cross the line there.
Absolutely. No, the other thing is that we want to, I really have this question, because how far away now from doing the Sri Lankan jersey? I mean, surely that must be on your bucket list of.
I think I must not really get into that too much.
Upset another family entirely.
Exactly. I'll be upsetting too many people. You put me into the spot.
We still got ourselves about 50 minutes to go on the show with us, and speaking to Hasib, who's very closely connected with Sri Lanka cricket, and obviously associated with the Sri Lankan cricket team right now. Looking forward in taking this great brand, Sri Lankan brand, abroad, which really is sort of your goal to make it an international brand.
Yeah,
and
Shak, I think that should be Sri Lanka's goal too, because if you notice, right, I mean, we are very happy to sit back and do a trading operation without building a truly national iconic brand. There are few that can kind of, our tea certainly.
And say what Dilma sort of did.
Absolutely.
That's
So
right.
that's sort of, say, because if you look at it as an example, tea has always been Sri Lanka's thing, and there was never a tea brand from Sri Lanka.
Which is unpardonable, right?
yeah.
And it's amazing what Dilma sort of managed to do. So I'm hoping, our team can sort of do this for the apparel industry.
And we're perfectly set, aren't we? I mean, we have the expertise.
We have everything.
We have everything
except
here.
the brand.
Yeah, except the
Here we are
brand.
doing absolute wonders for Victoria's Secret, Nike. I mean, they're great brands because they've
We are
invested.
doing
in
wonders
them.
for Victoria's Secret, that's for sure.
Yeah.
Harriet Kian, choose your words wisely, Anu.
Sorry. So minimally for some brands. And maximally for other brands. Anyway, I'm just saying, like, just imagine if we had a brand like that, which is not impossible. And I think that's what Moose is aspiring to.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And say, I personally don't want to just stop with Moose. It could be other brands as well.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
So,
no, I mean, like you said, we have the infrastructure here. We have the expertise here. We create brands for the world, and they are right on top there. Why can't we actually create our own brand here, right? But how difficult was it within the family for you to break away from the family business to start something on your own?
So say, small correction. It is not, say, the family is invested into the business.
Right,
It's
okay.
part of the main holding company.
Right.
So the decision really was for me sort of to make whether I really want to take the plunge and to do something different, because say the family was the board and the rest of the family was not really keen on investing into a brand previously, because it had been done before by others and sort of lost money on it.
Right.
And so they were not really keen, but then I was persistent. And
Right.
and maybe, so did it a little bit sneakily as well, and made it happen.
Right.
So,
How has their perception changed now?
so say perception changes with, say, sort of what happens is when it is losing money, the perception is not good.
Yeah.
But when it becomes profitable,
Yeah.
the perception changes. And,
So it's a perception in flux.
exactly.
Which is the case for everything, isn't it?
Exactly.
Right? Yeah.
So-
Like Sri Lanka cricket.
Yeah, like Sri Lanka cricket. I saw, like we mentioned this earlier on, I saw that you obviously also got into rugby. I think, was it a year ago?
It was a year ago.
And how's that going on?
So say that was sort of, we were sort of testing out. It
Right.
was I think Sri Lanka rugby sort of for that sevens tournament was really looking for during the COVID crisis and all that.
Right.
So we thought we'll just help them out and all that, because we were working with the Hadlock Sports Club as well.
Okay.
So rugby is also hugely popular among school
Absolutely.
kids. And
Oh,
all.
yeah.
Yes.
So it's
Yes.
actually the oldest sport and the most popular sport that you're thinking about, because rugby's been here since the 19th century. Yeah?
Exactly.
Yeah.
So that was the reason, and so say after that we've not really continued with Sri Lanka rugby, but we've still continued with the club rugby.
And
supporting.
schools rugby is massive in this
Exactly.
country. It's huge. I mean, you being old Josephian, you obviously would know exactly how huge St. Joseph's is as far as rugby is concerned. But and the crowds that come to watch school rugby.
So many people men and women
Yeah,
are
of course.
invested in that sport. For very different reasons.
Yeah.
This is the more national, iconic sport that is cricket. But rugby is something that's it always had.
Absolutely,
Yeah.
and probably what do you call club rugby gets more spectators, much more spectators than the cricket, club cricket.
Yeah, oh yeah.
So-
Absolutely.
We don't even know if the club cricket is on. So that's something.
Okay, Gihan has this question. What was the inspiration behind the brand name?
I think if I tell Gihan's real story, he'll be disappointed. So shall we tell him?
Yeah, let's tell him.
So Gihan, the brand was already registered way before I got into the picture, and somebody had already played around with it.
Right.
And then it was idle when I took it over. So when I wanted to start something, I want to do things quickly. So I couldn't wait for the process to take place for the brand registered. It just picked up something which was registered, and then what we did was we had sort of a small competition on the internet
Right.
to redo the logo,
Right.
and then we went about registering the trademark around the world.
Okay.
So sadly, it's not a very interesting story, but the name was already there.
But what was the name? What was the product that was actually they played around with before though? Before
So
it sort of was
I
idling?
don't know if you guys remember. You will remember.
Oh, thanks. What does that mean? What are you
Abercrombie-
trying to say? I'm older, right? He's older than me, right?
Thank you.
Definitely he will remember.
Clearly.
You're lucky we're coming to the end of this conversation.
No, both of you. So say I think we remember the brand Abercrombie Fitch.
Yeah.
Yes.
So I think when they sort of began, probably they wanted to. The older logo was sort of resembling that, but then we changed it completely.
Oh.
So I think that was the idea when it's. I think that was the idea initially when it began.
So
Wow.
very sport kind of brand.
Yeah.
Oh,
yeah.
right.
So, but yeah. So.
Yeah. Sometimes these brands have a way of finding their way back, just like they have found their way to now Sri Lanka cricket, the most iconic sport in the country. So,
Yes,
yeah.
yes, amazing stuff. We have ourselves about 7 more minutes to go before we're done with the show. We need to take a quick break right now. Speaking to Hasib Omar in the studio with us, and of course the CEO of Moose Clothing, who are the official sponsors of the Sri Lankan cricket team at the T20 World Cup now being played in Australia. We'll take a break. We'll be back right after this.
අභියෝගය මොකක් වුණත් මේ රට දිනනවාමයි. Come on ශ්‍රී ලංකා. අපිට පුළුවන්.
Softlogic Live ලංකාවේ හොඳම සෞඛ්‍ය රක්ෂණයෙන් සුබ පැතුම්.
Welcome to the universe of the Raz, where you explore and discover whatever you want, whatever you need. All you can imagine is on your feet. When miles are abridged, happiness is unlocked. Discover your Daraz.
Do we bat or do we bowl first? Take out the guesswork and make informed decisions. With all the information you need in a single screen to make the right decision. Edgevantage from SP Solutions.
ඕවර් එකයි ලකුණු 8යි විකට් එකයි ඉංග්‍රීසි වල නියපොතු ඉවරයි නායක දසුන් ශානකට ලොකු අභියෝගයක් වේගෙන් යවන චමීරද දඟ කවන හසරංගද
දඟ කරන්න චාමික නේද?
දඟ කරන නෙමෙයි දඟ කවන මව්බිමේ බලාපොරොත්තු සුරතට රැගෙන අවසන් ඕවරේ එවීමට ශානක got him ශ්‍රී ලංකා වී අභියෝගය මොකක් වුණත් මේ රට දිනනවාමයි come on ශ්‍රී ලංකා අපිට පුළුවන්
Softlogic Live ලංකාවේ හොඳම සෞඛ්‍ය රක්ෂණයෙන් සුබ පැතුම්.
Thank you very much. Welcome back to the show. A big thank you to our sponsor, Softlogic Live. On the show with us, of course, is the Softlogic Live World Cup Payback series, which is on till the 10th of November. Thank you very much, Softlogic Live. Edge Vantage Workflows are also on the show with us, along with our friends at Daraz. Don't forget, the big sale, 11/11, is coming up just around the corner. It's a crazy sale on Daraz. And we have self-proclaimed Daraz ambassador in the studio who does not get paid to endorse them.
Not really. I had another delivery from the...
Oh, is that nice? That's nice.
Gomez, my man.
Whenever room at Daraz room, huh? You had all the stuff basically, all just,
No, I mean, I buy these things and they're used.
They're
You think
used.
they just lie around some trophy piece? No.
There are people who do that also.
Yeah.
Right, Hasib, final few minutes on the show. I mean, we've understood exactly where Moose came from, the plans as far as with associating the brand with key sports going forward. Next 5 years, where do you see Moose and what are your plans to actually get there?
So next 5 years, again, we want to be international clothing brand. That's the idea. That's what we're sort of really driving for. Maybe 5 years might say at least we want to be regionally well known.
Yeah.
So say if I look at it globally, say I don't know, have you definitely heard of the brand Uniqlo?
Yeah.
So say you overseas, you go into Uniqlo. It's probably not the most fashionable. It's not sort of fast fashion, but it's really high quality basic clothing at very reasonable prices compared to other brands.
Right.
So that's sort of my aspiration is to be sort of that sort of brand.
Okay.
So which offers exceptional value at
Reasonable prices.
At very reasonable prices. So
how far away have you? I mean, I'm sure you may have considered this.
Yeah.
But about maybe being sponsor or clothing partner for an international team. Doesn't have to be cricket.
No, it doesn't have to be.
Yeah.
Exactly. So that's also on the back of our heads.
Oh, okay.
And so say right now we're sort of really exploring strategies for our international business. So say the first one, like I said, was not successful.
Yeah.
Many reasons. So now get back on our feet and figure out. So keep trying till we succeed. That's the idea.
Kudos for you to obviously admit the fact that the first one was not successful. It takes a lot for a guy for someone to basically admit that, listen, we tried it didn't work. I mean, being a brand itself, not many people actually do that. Usually they sort of sweep it under the carpet and let's not talk about it.
So there's really nothing to say. We need to figure out our strategy,
right? And
say only when we can say we are successful is once we sort of become regionally or globally known.
Okay.
So
final few minutes. You got about 2 more minutes to go. I'm going to put you on the spot right now in terms of the current situation in the country right now. With the curbs in terms of taxation, with the curbs in terms of economic downfall, do you see the brand growing? Do you need to basically always swim against the tide? Or would you consider having a creative arm in Sri Lanka and production somewhere else?
So I think right now as things stand, to sell in Sri Lanka will probably be very difficult for us to import finished clothing and be competitive.
Right.
So the idea would be sort of to produce in Sri Lanka for Sri Lanka.
Right.
But for globally, definitely we'll look at producing, say, in different cheaper destinations.
Right.
So we already do that. We have a little bit of production happening in Bangladesh for our India and Dubai markets.
Right.
Say again, that reason being for duty benefits and all that.
Of course.
Say because it's very difficult to send clothing from Sri Lanka to India.
Right.
We can only send 10 million pieces, and one glove for one hand counts as one piece.
Oh, really?
So, 2 gloves will be 2 pieces. So if 10 million pieces is nothing.
How ridiculous is that?
So,
I hope they don't do that for trousers. One leg and 2 legs, 2 pieces.
And your crotch area will count as a third piece. No. Yeah, but I know what you mean now. Clearly, this was drafted in India, this agreement, because they're trying to protect their market, which is understandable.
It's understandable. I have a different opinion. It doesn't make sense to me.
No, but we are still playing that game. I mean, we want to compete in the global market. I mean, not we, but the countries in this region. But they still very much protect local. Yeah, so you cannot be a truly global player if you don't let others in.
Absolutely. Yeah. So that's my line of thinking as well.
Well, it's been an absolute pleasure having Hasib in the studio with us, talking about Moose, the brand, the inception of the brand, being associated with one of the biggest games as far as Sri Lanka is concerned, and be associated with one of the biggest tournaments of the game that Sri Lankans obviously love. Kudos to you. Congratulations to you and the team to powering forward, and we hope to see Moose associating with Sri Lanka cricket and Sri Lankan sports, and of course the Sri Lankan lifestyle in the future.
Thank you so much for having us.
It's been an absolute pleasure, Hasib. Thank you.
Thanks,
so much.
Thank you so much for coming and having a chat with us.
It wasn't too bad, was it?
No, it was amazing. The first week was...
Yeah.
No,
we can go on for another hour if you want. I guess not.
Past my bedtime.
Thank you very much, ladies and gentlemen. Time for us to basically get out of here. Catch up with you once again tomorrow night as we carry on with the World Cup fever right here on Sit Back. Have yourself, of course, a wonderful night.
Take care. Bye-bye.